All right, Peter, thank you for being here today. My name is Scott McKenzie with home care agency Blueprint, and I have Peter here today coming on the line to talk about. He's going to be asking me some questions, some commonly asked FAQ questions in regards to the home care industry, and we'll be going over those today. Peter and I have a long past relationship working with we're in a mastermind together, and he is in Texas, I'm in California, and we have done some spiritual work in a mastermind, and now we have come together. I'm going to be working with him on setting up a golden age companions based in Texas. So yeah, we're going to be actually, this is going to be the first part of series. We're going to be covering module 1, which is in my course, and there's about 13 different modules, so we'll be going over those. Today we're going to be covering part of module 1. So yeah, Peter, if you want to just introduce yourself, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I'm super excited to be here. Like Scott said, we've known each other for years, and I was looking at some career changes, didn't know what I was going to do, and I was checking out some franchises, and I didn't even know that home care agencies were franchises. But when I heard that home care agency was franchises, I immediately thought, hey, I'm going to call Scott, see what he's up to. And that's how it all started. And now I'm doing the Blueprint course. And as I'm working through it, it's like, it's a phenomenal course, but there's additional questions I have. And so I think this is going to be fun and kind of organic and interactive. And I'll ask some questions. You can get some awesome answers. And we'll do this as many as we need to do to like get all the questions answered.
Yeah, and our idea behind this, for those of you that may already be inside of my course or looking at, just to be clear, home care agency Blueprint, we are a coaching program along with there is my course to download and go along with on launching up your own home care agency. We are full-fledged. We offer branding, incorporation, everything from starting and scaling and growing your home care agency, also getting your state license and everything. So, we're here. I'm grateful to have Peter along to ask these questions, and I feel like this will create some more clarity for those of you that may have gone through the first module and they want to know more. And there's a ton. This business can be very simple. At the same time, there's quite a few things that are involved, and Peter has some great questions. So yeah, more than happy to answer those today, and we'll get started.
All right, first question up. I mean, module one's all about understanding your market, right? So I can't remember which module or submodule it was exactly, but it's like you should read, your recommendation, read industry reports and look at professional associations. And I was just asking, do you have any specific reports that are just awesome that you'd recommend?
Yeah, so some of the things that you can look up and look into. So McKenzie and Company, their healthcare reports are really great. Deloitte healthcare industry reports. I'm just going to name a few here. PwC Health Research Institute. There's even Kaiser Family Foundation. They have multiple reports, and those cover on insurance coverage and Medicare and Medicaid. So those are just overall industry reports to dig into. A lot of them are paid, so you need to buy the reports to really get some like healthy data out of it. The other thing is too, just simply Googling and looking up the industry and kind of like what articles and things that are getting posted online, maybe some by some of the leaders in the space, like some of these huge even franchises or some of the hospitals or anybody that is in healthcare. There's a lot of like publications being put out there. Harvard Business Review, they'll write stuff on healthcare. So there's a ton of resources out there to look up. And I mean, everybody knows, they call it, the silver tsunami. Everyone knows home care is just blowing up, and that's a fact. So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways of looking into it. And I always say, like, if you're really if you have a heart for this business and you want to jump into it, even if you feel like there's a lot of competition around you, I would still encourage you to get in the business because when there's a will, there's a way. And even with Golden Age Companions, I know when I started back in 2011, we had 6 or 7 agencies in the immediate like 2 or 3 mile area, and people would always tell me like, how can you get clients? And it's not something that I looked at because I feel like there's plenty of fish in the sea type of thing. So I mean, I don't know. I always like to say in home care too, like we're offering a service. You're not selling people to buy into, like getting care with your agency. You're offering a service, and having that mindset is really important because you're really contributing to these seniors and really keeping them in their homes. And you have a heart for the business, and you know that that's what most people get into this business because they have a heart for it. They went through their own personal experience, and they want to bring that into creating their own agencies. So that's just my personal opinion on it. But yeah, there's different reports that you can definitely look into, and it's important to read what's going on. You might get different ideas on how you want to specifically structure your home care agency.
Okay, awesome.
So
Thanks. And the next thing I ran into is like you say, okay, start to define your market and go look at the census numbers and things like that, which I did, and I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing in my particular marketplace. But do you have any specific metrics that you apply when you're looking at those census metrics in terms of how many people over 65, 75, 85 defines like a really solid, at least starting point marketplace?
yeah, that's a great question. So some things that you want to look into are, I mean, unobvious. What is a how many elderly people live, say 65 or over 75? Look at the age group and the population and that density of that age group that lives in the area that you're looking to market to is important. And then home ownership. It's, say, in a specific area, how many of those people own their homes and what is the median income? Now, the median income can be kind of like um like it could be a little deceiving because sometimes the median income shows that it's on the lower end, but there's a higher population of elderly that own their homes and they just might have a ton of savings. And personally, I've seen that with Golden Age Companions. We're in Irvine. We've had some really big clients that have paid $20,000-$30,000 a month in Santa Ana. And Santa Ana is known for being like lower income area, but there's a lot of elderly that live there now that have owned their homes there for 60 plus years. And they might live in like a nicer part of Santa Ana, but innately it's known that that area is lower income, but the home ownership is high. There's people that own their homes, they've lived there forever, and they're seniors. So that's something that is important to look at. There's some data on like health insurance coverage, looking at what insurances, like what percentage of population have different insurances in that area. That's important. Keep in mind when you are looking at starting up your agency, like for Golden Age Companions, we mainly did private pay and long-term care insurance. And you can also get credentialized with a home care agency Blueprint. We offer this service. So what that means is your agency can get an NPI number and get credentialized with Medicaid and Medicare. And then there's a handful of other insurances that you can think of it as like partnered with to be able to accept. I'm talking about like over here, like Cal
Mhm.
Optima is one of them. That's a huge player, and they pay out for home care services. So if you're able to accept Cal Optima, they will pay for an allocated number of hours for your client. Even if your client can pay, say, private pay, maybe they can supplement, part-time hours that the insurance will pay for, and then they'll add on private hours. But so insurance coverage area, that's important to look at. Even like disability, like how many people have, and I'm not talking about even like low income disabilities. I'm talking about people that, are permanently disabled, that are just they need a full-time caregiver. And the
Mhm.
thing there is, I know over here in Orange County there is a place called the Regional Center, and it's like a whole nother application that you've got to apply for. It's almost like getting a whole nother license, and it takes about 4 months. But basically, the Regional Center is in charge of dispersing. It's a government funded program, and they pay in full, really good rates too, like 38 plus an hour for people that have full-time disabilities that need that care, and they contract. So you become a vendor with them, and then they will basically reimburse you and pay you for care services for people who have disabilities. I know Golden Age, we focus mainly on seniors. I'm just throwing that in there that with disabilities, that's important to look at if you're looking at kind of getting in that market. So it's not always the elderly, like there might be an area that you live in that has a high amount of people that are disabled and that they need that full-time care.
Thanks, Scott. I after I asked you this question originally, I did go back and do some more research, and I'm highly encouraged because the population over 65 in my area is expected to grow 50% over the next 5 years, which is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
most people don't realize this part of Texas is kind of like one of the largest retirement areas in the country after Florida. So I'm in the right place
Yeah.
for once in my
Yeah.
life. All right.
Yeah.
So next question is when looking at, I was taking your thing about go look at the Chamber of Commerce's, become a member. So I started doing some research there. And in my area, there's a mix of what I'd say franchise home care agencies and then some independents. And I noticed that, some of them weren't members of the chamber. So I was like, no, that's kind of weird. Why wouldn't you be a member of the chamber? So the question came up, what are the pros and cons of chamber membership and why are some people not members?
Yeah. Yeah. So becoming a member of your local chamber is one of the most important things that you can do when starting up your home care agency. You've got to, at the end of the day, you've got to have a vehicle to get your name, your brand name out there for your home care, for your new home care business. People don't know about you, so they want to know you. They want to know, face to business. They want to know who the business owner is, and this is all relationship based, right? So they've got to trust you. If they just see a brand name somewhere, they don't know the owner, they've never seen them around, they're going to be less likely to like want to go with that agency or refer. But coming back to the chamber, it's important to, I always say, enroll in a membership. It could be as little as $100 for a year, up to $500. Everyone's a little bit different. When it comes to the people that are not enrolled, those are maybe they just bought like side advertising with the chamber. They just paid, they didn't become a member, but they just paid for like advertising to be listed in the directory. And then if you are a member, you get invited to all these events and you get to partake in them. Now, I'll be the first to say, no, you don't want to go to all the events. I mean, if you can, that's great, but I would argue that it'll be borderline waste of time if you go to too many events, because there's a lot of other things you could be doing. You don't want to be spending so much of your time attending all these events. However, if you commit to going to, say, once a month, like maybe the luncheon or the mixer or like the periodic events that the chamber holds, that's going to be really important, because then you get to hand out your business card, you get to network with people, you're going to be talking to others that, obviously are members of the chamber. Most of them that go to the events are members, and you'll be able to network and you'll be talking to people that they'll ask, oh, what do you do? And it could be as simple as they just like you, and then they know someone that works in the hospital that's a discharge planner that could be able to refer business to you. So it kind of just unfolds. And the other thing that I'll mention too on the chamber that's nice is they do offer presentations too. So you can actually come in and do a presentation with the chamber. And also, don't be discouraged if for some reason, like, oh, I'm not getting any clients, after I'm going to all these events. It's not the way it works. You really got to be persistent on building, focus on the area of building the relationships and getting to know these people, and then asking the right questions, getting to know what they're about, not going in. It's important to have that mindset of not just like, oh, I'm going to these events to get clients. It's you'll disappoint yourself. So you want to go in there going like, I want to get to know these people, I want to know what they have to do, and think about from like the giving mindset, like how can I contribute to them. And
Right.
most likely it's just going to wrap around. At the end of the day, you will end up somehow getting connected with someone that will be able to refer you some business, or maybe they have like a great insurance contact or something. Like you just never know. So that's
So
yeah.
one more question on the chambers while we're talking about it is like, I'm fairly rural where I am, and I expect my marketplace to be a large area, and I know you got a large area there too in Southern California. If you got multiple chambers to choose from, should you do all of them or pick the best one, or what's your
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I would do is I would say, if you have you don't necessarily want to go to the closest chamber to your house, right? Like I would look at which chamber maybe is in a location where there's a higher affluency. I know here in, like, for example, I live in Irvine. There's the Corona Del Mar Chamber of Commerce, which is in like one of the most affluent areas. Then there's also Newport Beach Chamber. Those two chambers, even though they're in affluent areas, the culture of the Newport Beach one is not as kind of like tight knit as it is in Corona Del Mar. So maybe, I mean, the way to do it is just visit a few of the chambers and talk to, like if you can open up and talk to the president of the chamber, which it sounds like it's a big deal, but they're very open to speaking with you, then that is the chamber I would go with, given that you just have a good vibe around it and you like them. Like I know at CDM, the president's very accessible and she's pretty supportive. Now, the one in Newport, it's like they're almost impossible to get through to anybody. It seems like it's just a different culture, and some people like that. I mean, some people think, "Oh, I just want to be in Newport." So, um yeah, that's the best way to join. You could possibly join two, but I would say when joining, definitely pick one and commit to being involved there. And then the last tip that I'll give on that is ask for the template of like events that they have, and look at those events and see if those align with what maybe you're looking to attend, that could kind of intermingle with home care or healthcare, right? Because some events could be like all about stuff that you're like, all right, this isn't, there's gonna like be a waste of my time here. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
mhm.
So I said earlier, in my area, I have a mix of some franchisees and some independents, and I have a broad territory I'm going to work on. But what do you consider to be like an oversaturated number of companies in an area? And what's been your experience in Southern California?
Yeah, I would say an oversaturated number would be if you were to look at, say, 3 square miles. If there's more than 10 companies within 3 miles, I would say that that's pretty saturated. Now, keep in mind, in home care, you have, like you could be marketing to clients that could be 20 or 30 miles away. I'm going to keep circling back to how it is with Golden Age Companions. We're in Irvine, and there's some clients we've had in San Diego. That's 100 miles away. We've had some in Riverside County. That's 50 miles away. And you could easily source caregivers because we're California licensed, of all of California. You can still source caregivers and operate in that county. So some of our biggest clients we've had have been in, say, like Riverside County. So just because the agency is actually established in a certain location, there's a lot of agencies maybe around that immediate area, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a good spot to start a home care business. It might just mean that that's a business district that like a lot of it's attracting maybe the healthcare sector more. But I would still come back to that 10 number, because like the thing is, if you're going on Google Maps and you're looking at home care, it'll be more challenging to come up under the SEO of your name to show up on like number one if there's like 10 other immediate ones right around you.
Yeah.
Someone's clicking on you and they're like, well, there's a few more, maybe I'll just call them too. Where if there's only like maybe four, around, then it's not as tempting to have your business kind of flow over to other agencies.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to depend on where you live too. Because when I heard you say 10 per 3 square miles, I'm out in the country and there's nothing
Yeah.
out here. So
Yeah.
I think it depends on where you live.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got this competition, right? And one of the things we got to do is differentiate ourselves. So, and when I was doing the blueprint, you mentioned the one thing that sets yourself apart, which I'm going to certainly strive for, is to be able to quickly match clients with caregivers. I think that's awesome because they might call one caregiver and say, oh, I don't have anybody for it. They call you, oh yeah, I got somebody, they'll be here tomorrow. So what other advice would you give to people starting their agencies to like differentiate yourself from caregivers? So if you got a bunch around you, how do you stand out?
Yeah. Yeah, so putting together the legwork ahead of time to really recruit caregivers, uh, even if you don't have a bunch of clients right away, we always tell our agency owners as they're ramping up and getting started, like even when they apply for the license and they're waiting, they can still be talking to potential caregivers and see, let them know like my business is going to be opening up. Or, I like to use the language, we're, I don't want to say pre-selling, but we're basically creating a waiting list. Like I like to use language like there's a demand, just to let people know that you're going to be accepting patients. That's kind of better language to use. And then when it comes to pre-vetting caregivers, it's important to, when you want to staff quick, you got to have people obviously ready to go. And the more caregivers that you're speaking to, the higher chance you're going to have of being able to pick that, sixth or seventh caregiver you interviewed, and they'll be a good match for the family. And so I think the biggest mistake a lot of home care agencies make are like they won't even interview caregivers if they don't have clients or if they don't have a flow of clients. Maybe they have 10 clients and you know they have a few caregivers kind of ready, but maybe those caregivers live in an area that isn't even close to the client that they get that next phone call that comes in and that they need service, and now they're kind of like scrambling to maybe put ads online and post and see who else they can to find to that client. Now, a rule of thumb is, so like one of the platforms we use, and this shows up later in our home care agency blueprint course, is we teach using Hierology as a hiring platform. So in Hierology, you can actually put multiple job postings in different zip codes, and that's ideal because then the ideal way of doing it is creating a spreadsheet according to the location of which caregivers have applied and which ones you've maybe spoken to. You don't need to bring them on payroll, right? You can just speak to them and say, we have clients coming up. And and I know, Peter, you're big on the energy stuff too, and so am I. So one of and both of our coaches, I mean, referring to Michelle here, one of the biggest things Michelle taught me that really ramped up my business back in 2016 was she said, look, if you like, and at that time we only had a handful of clients, and she said, well, if you want to get more clients, you've got to, why don't you bring in more caregivers to interview? And I kept telling her, well, why am I going to do that? Like, I don't have a bunch of clients yet. And she said, well, what you can do though is you can bring in the caregivers, speak to them, and let them know like you have cases coming up. And then I remember telling Michelle, I'm like, what, you want me to like lie to the caregiver? Like, I'm not going to tell them we have something when like we don't. And she goes, no, that's not the way that this is. You're putting the energy out there that you're basically manifesting, you're creating that, right? So you let them know that you're on the map, right? Your agency's here. So at any moment you can get a call and you do have cases coming in. So I will never forget the day that I brought in a group interview of like 4 caregivers. And I remember telling them, this is right after Michelle taught me this. And I remember letting them know, oh yeah, we have a full-time case coming up. And we didn't, but like I just said, yeah, it's going to be coming up, in the next like week or so. I'm not even kidding. After those caregivers left, like 40 minutes later, we got a random phone call and it was like a 40-hour week case. I'll put that on my grave. I could not like, and I remember calling Michelle being like, you're like, are you like the witch doctor? What is this here? That like, what's this woo stuff? This is crazy. So, but
That's
no,
awesome.
now it's not crazy because it's real stuff. And anyway, so I was really kind of like blown away by that. And coming back to your question, Peter, I think it's important to the way that you can staff the case fast is obviously that you just have more caregivers to reach out to that you've spoken to, not that there are all these applicants sitting in a database, but if you're doing the due diligence ahead of time and you're just speaking to different people, even at the events, letting them know like, yeah, we're hiring caregivers, you will be like shocked of how that kind of connects where, oh, I just met someone at an event today, she said she's looking for work, she just came off a hospice case, she lives in that area that we just got this new client that wants care. So
Yeah.
but yeah, to stand out, that's like the best way to do it. Now if there's a specific case that say is a high level of hospice, or maybe it requires like intense transferring, like a really strong caregiver, or maybe the caregiver needs to be male, which is, only about 15% across the board usually are male caregivers that want to do caregiving. So, say it requires that, you can put an ad online, and we teach all of this in the course and our coaching program, but like you can put an ad online specifically for that case in that zip code, and likely you will get some applicants within a few days that will be a good fit for that case. So
Cool.
yeah.
So that's all about, that was great on just how to like get the caregivers kind of teed up, ready to go and manifest the clients for the caregivers. What other ideas do you have to differentiate your agency from the others around you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm huge on branding. I always say like you don't want to build a house on sand. So that's one of our biggest strengths with Home Care Agency Blueprint that no one else is doing in the industry is when we create your agency on your behalf, we create the branding. And even if you're not signing on with us, even if you are looking at doing your own agency, I highly encourage you to really take some time and think about what your brand identity is, your vision statement, your mission statement, your business description, making sure that, say, that business description is consistent across all the directories online. There's hundreds of directories that you could be posted on, and it's important to be looked at as almost like you're looked at as a really big company, or like you're looked at as a franchise, but you're not. Um, Believe it or not, one of the differentiation ways to make sure that you're different from other people are not being a franchise. If you're a private company, people like that. They like that, they get to call this local number and they're going to get somebody on the phone. Another way is if the clients know that the owner is semi-accessible, and not saying that you have to be up till 1 a.m. answering phone calls. Um, I'm just saying, like, if they know that you're accessible, they like that too. That's not all agencies do that. They're kind of more like big machines. So they
Yeah.
have their receptionist answering the phone. Um, yeah, so I would say like the branding, making sure that you have solid brand, solid foundation there, that you're on all the different directory listings, that you're available. Now, quality of care is important too, being sure that you are providing quality caregivers. Now, keep in mind, everybody in this industry, that's like, think about you as a family member interviewing a caregiver for your loved one. And every agency is going to come into that home and say, we have quality care, we have quality care, we have quality care. They all say the same thing. So how does a
Yeah.
family know to go with you versus somebody else? And a way to kind of get through to the family, and you've got to honor this in your own business, you got to actually execute this, so don't just say it, but really saying that we are there for you. You can call, like, I simply say, like, you can call me directly, or even if it's my case manager, our owner's available. Here's, like, we even at one point had a sheet where like, we had the staffing coordinator, the case manager, my phone number. We had all of our direct lines on a sheet when we did the assessment, and gave that to the family to say, look, you can contact either one of us if you have any questions. And we even labeled it like, this is the person that's in charge of this and whatnot. Um, yeah, I would say that that's huge. Making sure that you're just kind of more like that tight-knit agency. So many of these agencies, they kind of like lose track of as they grow. Some grow very rapidly, so they'll lose track of really their culture, and maybe they're not supplying the caregivers as quickly. And it's easy to do that. I'm the first to say at Golden Age, I mean, as we grew pretty fast, yeah, there were times where we would send a caregiver out and they wouldn't show up, and then maybe our care coordinator wouldn't call right away. So then the family's upset, right? So these are things that if you really hold to gain the trust of the family, and if you really hold to what you say and you really do provide that quality caregiver, it's not going to be perfect every time. You will get that in this business. You are going to get caregivers that will come in, they'll interview, you'll feel good about them, and they won't show up. It'll happen. I'm one, I never sugarcoat things. So um it does happen, but there's ways to mitigate it. And the better job you do at making sure you pre-vet, and that comes back to what I was mentioning earlier. If you're pre-vetting people ahead of time, and you basically have hot dial phone numbers, right, of other caregivers that you know are good that can go show up, the best thing you could do if that caregiver doesn't show up, or um, it's just making sure that you can get on the phone and get someone else over there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's yeah, there's a bunch of different ways, but those are just a handful.
I bet when you put your phone numbers on that sheet that you gave them, how many people actually took advantage of that, right? Like probably not a lot, right?
Well,
But in the moment, it probably felt special, but then
yeah.
nobody ever acted on it,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. And it's good too on having the like getting the feedback, encouraging the family to say if there's ever anything that shows up, like our owner, is open to having a conversation. Like a that reminds me, another way to differentiate too is like just even doing a simple check-in when you place that caregiver on that first shift. After the first shift, talk to the caregiver, talk to the client, see how the first shift went. And families really, really appreciate that, because at the end of the day, there's all these different things that agencies can do to stand out. And at the end of the day, if you have a solid reputation of providing really quality care, then that's going to make you stand out, and you'll get word of mouth business anyway. So,
Well, those are all the questions I had on module one. That was awesome. I know we've been
yeah.
running here for a while. Is there anything else you want to say to kind of wrap it up or?
Yeah, not that I can think of right now. We're going to be doing a bunch more of these videos, so you will be able to see more things that Peter will be asking. And I think it's important to really just organically have these conversations, and and have this posted so people can really see in depth what it really takes to run and operate a home care agency. I will say, when it comes down to the industry alone, a lot of these franchises, it just seems like they're really kind of closed, right? They don't want to give enough information unless you pay them, right, to join their franchise. And then the small mom and pops, they either are not run the best way, or if they are, they don't want to give out all the information either. And I get asked that question a lot, is like, how come you're like providing all this information pretty much under the hood of your home care business? And what it is, it's coming back to giving back to really just the community, giving back to, as of right now, we're operating in all 50 states. We can open up an agency in any of the 50 states. We're eventually going to do international. And this is like, I always thought of it as golden age companions. Like, we're providing care for a family, and we're employing a caregiver, and at 30, 40, 50 clients, you're not just affecting 30, 40, 50 people, you're affecting actually hundreds, because you're affecting the family members of the person being cared for. And then you're affecting, the person obviously getting the check, you're giving them a job, affecting their families. So it's nice to have that impact. And that's what brings me back to home care agency blueprint. It's amazing, because now we're setting up home care agencies that are now going out and making that impact. So it's having this butterfly effect across all the US, and it's really exciting. I'm grateful to be on this journey, and I'm so inspired by the business owners that come on, like how Like people are really committed and it's fun to see that. So, I mean, we focus on pre-vetting people ahead of time though to make sure that they are committed because we won't bring someone in our program unless we know that they really understand the business and know what it's all about. So,
Now, I know you did not mean to do this, but you just teed up the next module, which is vision and mission. Good job.
yeah. Well, we're going to be covering that one on the next one, vision and mission. So, yeah, thank
Okay.
you so much, Peter. I appreciate you being here today, and thank you for, just asking these questions. And I'm looking forward to the next sessions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the whole journey.
Yep.
Can't
Yeah,
wait.
absolutely.